All right, February 21st. We just wrapped up Curtis Blaydes versus Derrick Lewis last night. 12 fight card, originally 15. One person missed weight severely by 11.5 pounds. One person had back spasms, and one person's corner or someone got COVID. So ended up being 12 fights on paper. Honestly, I was looking at them like, I don't know how this card will be. Ended up being pretty good overall. So I guess let's start with Blaydes and Lewis. Obviously, Blaydes was a pretty heavy favorite.
He was my favorite too, man.
He was. I think we talked about this. I initially thought it was going to be Lewis that would win. And then I saw the lines and I was like, okay, maybe not Lewis. And then you already thought Blaydes. Because, I mean, minus 450 for, we're looking at Odds Shark, minus 450 for Blaydes, plus 325 for Lewis. I'm like, man, that's a pretty intense disproportionality. I mean, it's not like, Blaydes is better in terms of wrestling, and he always talks about it too. Like, I'm going to take you to the ground, and I'm going to leave you there, and then I'll pretty much just go at it.
So Blaydes is the guy you were saying is he's always the favorite in his fights. Like
he's literally it's a good thing you brought that up.
He's knocked out his past 3.
No, so he's every single fight that he's been in, he's been the favorite. So this was his 15th fight. So granted, the earlier fights, I don't know if they even had lines, but he's been the favorite for every single event that has had betting odds that he's been a part of, including his 2 losses against Francis Ngannou. And when he fought Ngannou the second time, he was actually a heavier favorite the second time than he was the first time.
Okay, so he won his last 2 from what I'm seeing. He beat Alexander Volkov and he beat Junior Dos Santos. And he was favored in those fights as well, heavily, you're saying.
I don't know how heavy, but he was just a favorite. His only loss prior to last night was against Francis Ngannou, which looks pretty okay, given the other people he's fought and given that's his only loss. But he's often like, the critics of him are like, dude, do something, like, because he'll take you to the ground and he'll just he'll just drown you.
Yeah, and we didn't see any of that this fight at all, man. Like, it looked like he was actually trying to keep it on the ground or on the floor.
Yeah,
how do you describe that?
Yeah, he's on his feet.
On his feet.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it now on ESPN. On ESPN, he had only 3 takedown attempts. This fight ended in the second round, about 6.5 minutes. The fight lasted. He only had 3 takedown attempts, and they weren't really. And his last takedown attempt he ended up going down because of that attempt. But even the first 2, like, there wasn't.
No,
there wasn't a very.
There was nothing
effort.
there. I felt like there was nothing there, man. And like, honestly, I was watching Derrick Lewis walk around thinking like, okay, this is not going to go anywhere. This guy's going to get taken out. Like, he looked a little floppy, and
he kept slipping.
Yeah,
that left leg, as Connor kept saying, it looked compromised.
It did look compromised, man. And that kind of threw me off because the minute that uppercut landed, and we saw fucking
Blaydes like went down so slowly too. I was like, is he going down or is he like keeping himself up? And he just
we saw rigor mortis kick in, dude, and his arm just wouldn't move. It like kept that position. Like, that moment for me was kind of like, I don't understand how this happened. Like, the guy is knockout champion, right? He's tied 12 with
Vitor
Belfort, dude. So one more knockout, he's arguably he's the knockout king, dude. But still, man, how the fuck did you get that? How did that connection come in from underneath it looked like he came in underneath his guard, caught him in the chin, and then put him on the floor.
Perfect timing. It was perfect timing. And because earlier in the fight, like in the first round, they had that one punch where he landed on like right on the button on Blaydes, and I was like, "Oh shit, he stood up."
Yeah,
I thought that because the impact of it wasn't like a wind up one; it was just kind of like right onto it. But like Blaydes took it. I don't know, man. Because looking at the numbers, 28 significant strikes for Blaydes, 7 significant strikes for Lewis. 18 of the 28 for Blaydes was to the head, 3 to the body, 7 to the legs, 6 to the head for Lewis, and 1 to the body. That's 6. Like, I feel like all 6 counted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from a guy like that, man, I can't imagine it not counting, dude. Like, even getting hit in your like little toe or your pinky or something should be significant. Like,
we were talking about this too because leading up to the fight, I watched both of their interviews the day before the fight, and Blaydes had been saying like, I'm going to wrestle him. He's like, I'm not going to compromise my win bonus to put up like an entertaining fight. He's like, if I know that he can't wrestle, I'm going to take him to the ground and I will wrestle him. And then they were talking to Lewis about that. He's like, he doesn't really seem to respect your ground game because I think Derrick Lewis says he's like the best blue belt, because blue belt in jiu-jitsu, something like that. And they're kind of, because they also try and get like jokes out of him because he's a funny guy, man. He's a true character. And they were asking him about that. Like, it doesn't seem like he really respects the ground game. And he's like, I don't think he's going to wrestle me. He's like, I think he's just saying that. So like, I expect that. But he's like, I think he's going to try to just stand up with me. Because he's pretty much thinking like he's putting up like a wall just to kind of throw him off or something. Like get his game plan to prep for the wrestling, but he's actually going to stand up. And that's what happened. He had, again, 3 takedown attempts. I'm assuming that third attempt is the one where he went and got knocked out. And the first 2, I don't even remember when the second one was. I just remember one, he had him by one leg, but there was really nothing behind it. Like he had him on the one leg, Lewis was kind of hopping up and down, and then it went away. It was nothing.
Well, if that's what Blaydes' strategy was, there's no logic to it. For me, at least.
You should have just wrestled him.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, this guy is known to put people on the fucking... Sorry.
He has like 7... I think he averages like 7 takedowns every 15 minutes or something.
Clearly, that should have been your strategy, especially up against a guy that's known for putting people into the grave, Like, what were you thinking, dude? And I prefer... For me personally, I prefer seeing a mix. I don't like seeing guys just go toe-to-toe, boxing style, because... I mean, if that's what the sport was, then it would just be called boxing. It wouldn't be called mixed martial arts. MMA, exactly. Throw a mix of that into there, man. Like, do the leg kicks like you were doing. Compromise his leg. Take him to the ground.
Yeah, by the way, since you mentioned the leg kicks, 7 leg kicks, those look... like watching it, you're thinking, oh man, that might actually do something. And after the fight, they asked him about it. It looks like, nah. Whether he was just saying that or not, I don't know. He literally looked at his leg. He's like, no, I'm good.
Nothing there.
Because it was his lead leg, his left leg. He slipped like once or twice. There was a couple of times like I feel like he just got like a weird position on the ground. The leg looked. I'm like, so I couldn't tell. Like, is it from the kicks? His leg is kind of loosening up, or is he just by chance he's getting weird spots on the mat? He had one where he just straight up slipped.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it ended up not mattering. He still knocked his ass out.
Just goes to show, man. When it comes to these heavyweight fights, you can't even blink.
Yeah.
You have no idea what's going to happen because these guys have so much power that the unexpected's going to occur, man. Even if you think you have some, planned out, mapped out roadmap, forget about it.
I thought Junior Dos Santos put it pretty well. He put like after this fight, he tweeted it. It was pretty much like, wow, like what a knockout is like. And if you think you know anything about this sport, like, you're stupid. As in, like, I think it was also alluding to the fact that he was an incredibly heavy underdog and he still ended up doing that.
I mean, looking at just because they weren't the only heavies on this card. We had a lot of heavies on this main card.
Right. For the whole event, there was 3 heavyweights. You had Blaydes Lewis, you had Aspinall, and
Olenek and Dawkins.
Actually, no, I'm sorry. You are right. There was 3 on the main. Yeah, on Arlovski and Aspinall and Dawkins, Olenek. And then we had the earlier heavyweight fight, that sloppy fest, the first fight, Bandera and Spivak.
Mm-hmm.
So big night for the heavyweight division. And frankly, I would say 3 of those 4 fights were good fights.
Yeah, I want to say
I just didn't care about that first one.
But that's usually the case, man. Like when you look at these heavies, the ones that impress are the ones that we saw on this main card. Yeah. These guys are maybe not like the leanest of the lean, but they're not flabby. They're not, they're not clearly some dude that just came back from McDonald's or wherever they came back from, like they're training. You can tell they're training, and you could tell because of not only what they're ranked at, but just watching the performances, watching the takedown attempts, watching the, the leg kick attempts. Like a lot of these
and they're not gassed out after 2 minutes of the first round.
Yeah. No, it's impressive, man. I mean, on that note though, the Olenek and Dawkins one I found interesting because when we were making our picks before the fight, I had taken Olenek just on the basis of his experience. Yeah, he's on the older side, but dude, look at that record: 59, 15-1.
Yeah, nuts.
That's no joke, man.
And versus 11-3. Now these are updated after yesterday's fight, but still, you have 14 total fights versus like over 70.
Yeah,
or close to 70, whatever. Yeah, over 70.
Yeah, well, and then so I switched we met up.
Yeah, because I said, send me your picks. You said Olenek, and then like 5 minutes later, like, never mind, I'm going Dawkins. Yeah. I also picked Olenek too, and I stuck with that. I was like, I don't know, man. He's at 59 fights, 59 wins. I want to see that 60th happen. He's already 43 or something. He's like, who knows when I think he's lost 2 in a row at least, so you don't know at this point for him too.
Well, my logic behind the switch was looking at who Chris Dawkins had actually fought. Mm-hmm. I watched the highlights of his fight against Ferreira, the October 10th, and it kind of like changed my opinion a little bit because he looked vicious, dude. He looked mean. And he TKO'd Vieira. I'm looking at this, round 1, 45 seconds in. That was nuts to observe.
Yeah.
So it kind of shifted my thinking a little bit. And for a minute there, I thought maybe I had made a really poor decision and I should have stuck with my original pick with Oleinik. But holy crap, man. He knocked him out. Well, technically knocked him out. Yeah, that was nuts to observe.
Yeah, because we were talking in the beginning, we're like, this is exactly where Oleinik should be. He immediately had him in the clinch. He had him against the fence. And I think he tried. Yeah, there we go. One takedown attempt. He tried to get him down, and props to Daukaus for not going down. Because that was one where he was like almost pulling him down or something, right? And then he just didn't get him. It was something. And I was like, I was like, this is bad for Daukaus. This is bad for Daukaus. And I'm like, oh, he's good. I think he literally shook off Oleinik. Yeah. I might be mixing up the fights, but I think that was the one. I'm like, that's actually exactly what he kind of needed to do.
You were saying this is bad for Daukaus. This is bad for Daukaus. Get out of there. Get out of there.
And he got out of there.
He got out of there, man.
Yeah, and then once he started, let's talk about this too. I thought Herb Dean really lagged that call on that one, man.
There have been a bunch of iffy calls, during the prelims and the
yeah, and we'll get to that one too. But the Oleinik one, I was like, because he was working him, man, and they were connecting to it. It wasn't like the ones where like he's hitting and it's like hitting the shoulder. Like he was connecting body, he was connecting head, and Oleinik already looked to me like he was not responding to any of it. And then as soon as Herb did call it, Oleinik was standing there, and then like he went to move left, and then he almost toppled over.
Yeah, there was no balance left in his legs. He looked like he was dead on his feet. It was pretty nuts, man. I mean, and especially for a guy that age, taking hits like you hear Rogan talk about this all the time, but he's absolutely correct, man. Like when you're at that age, dude, each one of those hits is dangerous.
That's why I don't know for him. I don't know what his contract situation is. I don't know if he has fights left on the deal. But I would imagine probably Dana's looking at that and it's like, I don't really care if you have fights left. Like you gotta call it. Because Silva had fights left too, and they still split it. So
that's what I was gonna get at, man. It reminds me of the Silva fight, and I don't even know if you should have let that happen as a farewell, final farewell.
Yeah.
Like, all right, cool, but it doesn't even feel right,
Dude, it's nuts. He fought not that long ago, Oleinik. It was like a couple months ago. I think it was towards the end of last year. Same with Arlovski. Arlovski also, I feel like they maybe fought on the same card again last time. I can't remember, but I know both of them fought relatively not that long ago.
Oleinik is a monster, dude. Yeah. He's a monster. He was on the...
Again, 43, and look at how he looks.
Like when I hit that age, I would... Lewis. It was Lewis he fought.
That's when we were in San Diego. It was July.
August 8th,
August, we were in San Diego. I remember that. Because that was the main event, if I'm not mistaken. And Lewis knocked him out.
So that was an interesting pair up, I guess. And now that I'm looking at this again, in retrospect, I'm realizing why I flipped the way I flipped. But what are you going to do, man?
Yeah.
It is what it is.
And then I guess since we were talking about Arlovski, I mean, Tom Aspinall speared him through he was pretty much going to spear him through the octagon. You see guys get taken against the fence.
Yeah.
This one was the most audible one that I can remember because it sounded like it was not going to hold. He just took him down. And how efficient was he? As soon as he got him against the fence.
That choke, man.
Like if you blinked, the choke was from the time he hit the fence to you blinking, he already had his arm under him. And as soon as the arm got on him, Arlovski just one tap, efficiently taps out. And that was that.
That's the moment where I realized like that was insane. I mean, other than the spearing, the fact that Arlovski just immediately knew he does one tap, and then you could see his reaction, like he knew that was it. You're done, dude. And it's so impressive to watch like the speed of that and the professionalism that it was done with. Because I mean, we've seen chokes, we've seen takedowns, we've seen submissions, but that looked so pro. It looked scripted almost. Yeah. It looked like this was out of a movie, dude. You planned this out in advance.
And Arlovski's 42 as well. And he won his last fight, which I think was sooner than Oleinik's then. Because I think, again, Arlovski's fight was like probably Q4 of last year. And he fought, what's that guy's name? Tanner something. That guy was kind of on a streak of his own-ish. Younger than Arlovski, which most of them are going to be. But I think he's like early 30s, whatever. And it was kind of a snooze fest of a fight. I think the decision was kind of also maybe a little bit questionable. But in the end, Arlovski did win it. And Arlovski's a legend in his own right, too. And and again, 42, because we were talking about like the types of heavyweights. Aspinall looked way leaner than he has in the past. Just looking at his last fight too.
Yeah, he did.
Arlovski always looks the way he looks. And then you had those first guys, those pancake titty guys in the beginning for fighting. But so those are the heavyweights, really, more or less the important ones.
The important ones, huh?
Then we had a controversial decision.
Are we gonna get into this?
Yeah, we're gonna get into this one. So we had the co-main, which honestly, after watching the fight, I don't know why it was the co-main. In my opinion, wasn't a bad fight, but whatever. So we had Ketlen Viera against Yana Kunitskaya. That went decision 29-28 across the board from all three judges. I don't know which fight they were watching. I thought it was a pretty clear round 1, round 3 for Vieira and round 2 for Kunitskaya.
That's what I had it at as well.
Looking at the numbers now, total strikes 35 for Vieira and 7 significant strikes total. And then you look at Yana, you have 215 total strikes and 47 significant strikes. If you just look at that two alone, those two alone, you're probably like, oh, well, Yana murked her.
Oh, give her all 3 rounds at that point. Why not?
Then you work down. You have control time. You have 8 minutes, 40 seconds for Vieira. You have still decent amount of time for Yana at 5 minutes, 10 seconds, but you still have 3.5 minutes more for Vieira.
3 takedowns.
3 takedowns out of 8. Not a great percentage, but not bad. And then no takedown attempts at all for Kunitskaya. And somehow we get, and we should also say how that fight ended. So the third round, you had about, I would say it was like at least 3.5 to 4 minutes of control for Vieira. Like, not necessarily too much happening, but she was controlling Yana. And then just the last minute, Yana flipped the script.
I don't even think it was the last minute, man.
Maybe the last 30 seconds, something
20,
like
30
that.
seconds. Yeah.
And Yana ended up on top, which is why you always will hear the commentator saying, make sure you end the round not on the bottom, even regardless of how that round's looking. So Vieira ended up on the bottom, and she was eating shots, and they were good shots. Yeah. And she ended up busted open from one of those elbows.
That's where half of those significant strikes came from, Matt, because otherwise that number would have been way, way lower.
Yeah, and as soon as she stands up, she stood up. I'm like, I mean, not a great ending for her, but I figured, she took that round.
Yeah.
And then she stands up, I'm like, oh, her face is absolutely hammered. I'm like, now I'm a little bit worried about what the outcome will be. And then 29-28 across the board, they gave it to Yana.
I mean, this is another weird one for me because I took Yana as my pick.
I did as well.
Just looking at her record, looking at her past fights, looking at Vieira's past fights, I thought it was a shoo-in. And then we go into that first round, and Vieira just dominated her on the ground, dude. And it kind of changed my opinion on it. So we watched the second round then, where Kunitskaya arguably put up, her performance. The majority of her performance was done in that second round, I think, at least.
I thought it was a clear 19-19 going
well, that's where she got that control time.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the first round, and it definitely wasn't in the third round. So, and on another note, the total strikes, 215 here. Okay, yeah, there's a strike, and then there's a strike. If your strike is this, I don't. How do you judge that?
Her significant strikes versus total strikes, 22% of those strikes were significant.
Yeah, no, dude. I'm sorry, man. Like, to me, fine. You're looking at strikes. You're looking at significant strikes. That's okay. But when a strike is basically you, the equivalent of you bashing on a teddy bear, or the equivalent of you, like, that you're swinging your pom poms around. You know what I mean? That's not a strike. I'm sorry. Significance were the types of strikes we saw in the last 27.
Yes, and they were hammered.
Those were
they were her husband's. Her husband looked like was working. Thiago Santos hammers.
Yep.
I saw Santos in her eyes as those hammers are coming down.
If she had performed that way throughout the first and the second round, I can see you giving Yana the fight.
Yeah,
but that's not what was happening. What was happening was Vieira was completely dominating her, and yeah, maybe there were no submissions that came of this, but there were attempts that were being made. There was movement on the ground. And for people that are watching this kind of thing and thinking like, oh, there's no action, there's nothing happening. Like, why do the judges give credence to ground control? Well, because it's mixed martial arts, man. If you wanted to watch boxing, you would watch boxing.
Yeah.
So to sit there and say that, I'm glad. And there were some hot takes out there on Twitter, man, on Reddit. It was I had a stake in this, so I'm biased for sure.
We'll talk about that too.
Yeah, but it was genuinely like upsetting to watch these takes. People saying that they shouldn't give as much.
Well, the ESPN crew right after the fight,
immediately after, it looked like a justification, man, because you knew it was a bad call. You knew that it shouldn't have been scored that way. It makes no sense.
And the judges scored it. 2 judges scored it 10-9 for Vieira the first round. One, I don't know which fight this guy was watching, gave the first round to Yana. All 3 gave the second round to Yana, which we both agree with. And then the third round, the first judge that gave the first round to Vieira gave the last round to Vieira, which was weird. And then the other 2 judges gave that final round to Yana, which again, the only thing that makes sense to me is the way it ended. And also she busted her up pretty bad. When she stood up, that was the first thing I thought. I'm like, her eye is absolutely jacked up. Watch some bullshit decision end up happening now because of how that looks. And that's what ended up happening.
I mean, we can go down this road, but like people that know way better than me have said way more about it. But to me, it's kind of like, look, if you're a judge and you're coming into this sport and you don't really watch this sport, you don't know. Like, I'm sure you do know, but at the same time, you see something like that, and that's what makes your decision for you. You see some lady get her eye busted open in the last 20 seconds, and you think that, okay, the round went to the other lady. That, come on. You know, you go back to judging school or whatever else, whatever they do, man. You need to retake your certification test.
Looks like they went to clown college.
Yeah, exactly, man. It is frustrating because I get it. I get people want to see action. I get that people don't like seeing they don't like seeing the jiu-jitsu. They don't like seeing the grappling.
Yeah, it's not as, especially like if you're, again, like you were mentioning, if you're a fan of the sport, if you're a true fan of actual mixed martial arts where you're comfortable seeing the fight on the ground, you're comfortable seeing the
Minner fight.
Yeah. Which we'll discuss too. Like if you're cool seeing things happening on the, look, if it's on the ground, they're literally just on top of each other, not moving. I don't like that either.
Yeah, break it up.
But if you look at guys like Khabib, when he's on the ground, that thing's like poetry in motion. Correct. This guy is so fluid. Like he's
like a snake.
Yeah, seriously. He's in side control on one side, and in half a second he's already switched onto the other side, and now he's got your legs tied up, and now all of a sudden you're on your stomach, he's on your back, and you're tapping out. It just happens like this. And the same way Minner was performing beautifully too. We'll get into detail of that, but same thing like that. You look at that, it's like it's interesting to watch that. I can understand too if it's just how some of Blaydes' fights, frankly, have been where he just takes the guy down. Like his last fight, I can't remember off the top of my head who was fighting, but it was like that. I was like, oh my gosh, shoot me now. This is so boring. He was just sitting on him. Like that is understandable.
Well, I mean, the clinch is
like or if they're like just hugging each other against the fence.
Well, see, and it's interesting that comes up because Yana, her last fight, basically worked the clinch. And I think that's how she took that last fight. She worked, I'm going to have to pull this up because I don't remember off the top of my head, but I remember watching the highlights of that fight, and that was all that fight was. It was up in the clinch. Yana was just controlling the other fighter, and that's kind of what gave me the opinion that I had going into this fight was that, okay, she's going to execute that same strategy because Vieira's excellent on the ground, especially watching her last fight. Vieira showed that she's got that ground game and that standing game too.
Yeah, Yana fought Julia Stoliarenko, something like that.
Yeah. That fight was all clinch. It was all up on the cage. And we didn't see that this fight, thankfully, because
she was on her back the whole fight.
Well,
half the fight she was on her back.
I'd rather that because we can watch Vieira seeking those submissions, you know, versus what is this? This hug fest over here, and nothing's gonna happen there. No leg stomps, no foot stomp, nothing. It's just no knees. Let's just hang out up here on the cage. Yeah. That's boring to me. But when you're on the ground and you're looking for submission attempts, to say that that's not MMA or not, that's not MMA, that's not fighting or that's not entertaining, I don't know what to tell you, dude. You might want to watch a different sport. Yeah,
that's probably who they would call casuals.
That normies,
yeah. Because we should preface too, we've only really gone into it the last. For me, I started watching it once pandemic hit, and it wasn't because I didn't like the UFC before. I watched some events. Like I was more of a casual fan then. It was pretty much big name, gather up with some of the friends and watch the event. That's why, like, I never, and I still don't claim I know that much about sports. I don't. But given what we've seen, like pretty much since like May, June, July, like you get way more into it now. It's like since we watch it so much, it's like I'm still not watching because I'm like, oh, knock him out. It's like knock him out if it's a sick fight. Like if it's a cool fight and you knock him out. Like there was like what 5 knockouts I think opened up the card. You had 5 straight KOs or TKOs, and some of them were cool knockouts and all. But I prefer seeing a longer fight.
Yeah.
I'm not saying let it go to the decision, but at least a little bit of time. If everything's a first round knockout, it's like, well, cool, but like there wasn't a fight. Unless you would like really went ham.
I mean, I guess it completely depends. Like you remember that Buckley knockout, that spinning leg. That was
nuts.
That was nuts, right? And if I remember correctly, that was in the first round. Was it
maybe
first or second round? Yeah. In any case, seeing something like that, even if it's in the first 10, 15 seconds, like I want to see a longer fight, but that's
different. Yeah,
that's something where it's 1 in a million. You're never gonna see something like that again. Chances are.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, but at the same time, there are those, 1 minute knockouts where you're like, Jesus, that was ridiculous.
Well, I mean, there was a couple in this card that were pretty brutal. So that, again, Lewis so far at this one, we have Lewis at plus 325 that hit. You had Kunitskaya at plus 220 hit. And then right before that, you had another dog hit at plus 155, Darrick Minner, which was a great fight too.
I loved watching that. So
you guys had a parlay out. You had... which was absolute robbery because of the ruling on that Vieira fight. So you guys had Dawkins, Minner, Vieira, and Derrick Lewis. With a pretty, like a 10-1 payout pretty much.
It was 25 to win. I think it was 538 or something.
Oh, sorry. So more than that, 20-1 payout. Yeah, something like that. That's right. Yeah. It was 25 or something like that. And that didn't happen.
No.
Because of the judges, to be frank. Because again, I had picked, when I asked you, I'm like, send me over your picks. I sent you over my picks. We both had picked Yana. This was just like without any Mountain Dew on the line. It was just strictly, who do you think's going to win? I thought it was going to be Yana. You thought it was going to be Yana.
She looked like the better fighter.
Objectively, as objective as it can be given our knowledge, it seemed very clearly that Vieira won the fight.
Objectively, even though I think Yana is the better fighter, based on the last 2 fights that I saw both fighters fighting, I think that match was Vieira's. Yeah. And I don't know. The one thing that I think the commentators are right about is this one will be extremely contentious. This will probably be talked about for hopefully in a week or two, and not forgotten.
I don't think anyone even cares. That's the thing. If it was someone else, and it's not to knock on them too specific, because the fight honestly wasn't a bad fight. I just like if it was like Blaydes Lewis maybe, because again this we talked about, like this card had the B squad out there.
Yeah, it did.
Bruce Buffer wasn't there.
Nope.
The usual commentators weren't there. Although I still like the commentating crew that was there yesterday with Bisping and sorry I don't remember the other guy's name. But then you had like the B squad of the ring girls kind of there. You had Laura Senko there, who I'm cool with too, but it wasn't Megan Olivi. Yep. So they just rolled out the subs for this one. And I think probably because maybe looking at the card for me too. I'm looking at the card. I'm like, I don't know how good it'll be, but it ended up being a good card. Yeah, again, we talked about it was a good card.
Almost everybody showed up. Even the dudes that missed weight.
All 4 of them.
Yeah, I mean, they showed up too.
4. I mean, one of them, again, we mentioned that one moron. I mean, I shouldn't say moron. He said he got sick, so let's assume he did get sick. Sorry, hopefully he felt better. But yeah, 11.5 pounds on your UFC debut.
Oh, it was I think we're talking about the guy, it was a back spasm.
No, that fight was going to happen. But the guy that I sent you, the fight didn't even happen at all because they're like, all right, dude, you missed 2 weight classes. You're not fighting. That's your UFC debut. It sucks. I don't know. He said he got sick. I don't know what happened. But yeah, so that went from 15 fights to 12. So yeah, going back to that Minner Rosa fight, that one, look at the numbers on this one. You have for Minner, 45 significant strikes, 35 to the dome, 5 to the body, 5 to the legs.
That control time.
12 minutes, 34 seconds of control time. Yes, the fight went to decision. So over 80% of that fight was controlled by Minner.
I mean, I honestly think this should have been 29-28 Rosa.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. Yeah,
that's the fact that one round was given to Rosa by one of the judges. I think the 3rd round they gave. Where's it? Minner. Here we go. Someone scored it 27-29. So yeah, Chris Lee gave the 3rd round to Charles Rosa.
No.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know what
he wasn't watching the same fight as us. And
I think he was watching a replay of Charles Rosa's earlier fights, maybe. And then because you're looking at and the thing is, Rosa was on his back a lot, but he was actually still putting up a fight.
No, both of them were. Yeah. That's the thing. That's grappling. That's that jiu-jitsu. That's technically
sound and nice.
I get excited about this, so then I want to start really talking really fast. But watching that for me was really exciting because I haven't seen grappling like that in
Thug Nasty. Maybe it was the last.
Thug Nasty may have arguably been the last one that we saw that was performing that way. But whenever I see something like that, I get excited because I have a background in martial arts. Yeah. So I did Taekwondo, I did judo, and I did karate. The karate and the judo obviously have grappling mixed into it. So I've spent a lot of time grappling dudes, and I find it to be an art, man. It is an art. You have to know what to look for, where to move, how to move. And when you get a performance like the one we got out of Minner, you have to like it. You got to like it, man. You can't sit there and say that there was nothing happening. There
and
was
4
no
for 5 on his
You're out of your
takedowns
mind.
too. Yeah, 80% on his takedowns, whereas Rosa attempted 1 takedown, which I truly don't even remember. And then he had 15 significant strikes, 9 to the dome, 4 to the body, 2 to the legs. It was a good fight. Again, if you look at just this number, it's like 12 and a half minutes of ground control, like what was happening. It was actually fairly active down there. We both enjoyed that fight. Went to decision. Good performance for Minner.
Considering that I didn't take any of these guys as a pick.
I had picked Rosa.
So you'd actually kind of, yeah. No, I didn't even bother looking into either of these guys. So to see it just pop up out of nowhere was cool for me.
Yeah. And then we talked about Dawkins Olnik. I had Olnik. You switched. Imavov and Haas. We both had Imavov. That did not happen.
He didn't show up.
He didn't. He honestly. It was the last 15 seconds of round 3 where he had, or the last minute-ish, he had this random burst.
Yeah. And it looked like Haas was going to go down.
Yes, we were literally yelling. We were yelling at the end because that was the second leg of your other parlay. You had we both had Castaneda, which we'll talk about that fight too. So Castaneda was your first leg of your parlay. You hit that, and then Imavov was your second leg. I had picked Imavov just without any Mountain Dew on the line. And Haas looked like he was wrung. His bell was wrung. I was like, but the thing is, Imavov also looked like he had absolutely nothing left to continue.
Nothing in the tank.
Because I'm looking at Haas. Imavov is looking at Haas, and he just stopped. I'm like, dude, he seriously looks like if you just blow on him, he will fall down.
Even in that first round, Imavov, because I was assuming that Imavov was going to try to neutralize Haas's arms. Haas has freaking semi-trunks for arms. Dude.
Yeah.
And my expectation was, okay, Imavov knows this, hopefully. He's going to try to neutralize him. He's going to take him to the ground. Haas is a wrestler, I believe, but Imavov has grappling experience. That didn't occur at all. There was Haas actually dominating Imavov on the ground for
4 for 7 on takedowns.
Yeah.
11 minutes of control versus 7 seconds of control.
It was the complete inverse of what I thought was going to happen, man. And for me, this was, I'm not going to lie, it was a little upsetting, because when you see a guy like that and you're like, round 1, what are you doing, man? You're not doing anything. Swing, shoot, do something, anything. Yeah. If you're calculating, like the Castaneda fight, but we'll talk about that one, right? If you're calculating, I get that, but that should only last up until a certain period of time. You know, you got to be a supercomputer when you're in there in that first round because you're giving that guy the same amount of time that you're taking to measure you up. And it looks like Haas got the measure of Imavov way quicker than Imavov did.
Yeah, so that one's a little more palatable of a loss when the guy actually legitimately loses, but it was still a good fight. It was cool. So Phil Haas hit at minus 125. When we talked about Olnik, Dawkins was at minus 200. Aspinall and Arlovski, we talked about. Aspinall hit at minus 260. Jared Gordon, Danny Chavez wasn't a bad fight either. Well, the first round, we were looking at each other like, this might be a fight of the night candidate. Yeah. And then rounds 2 and 3, everyone went to sleep. And so did I.
Yeah, pretty much.
Jared Gordon came in overweight by 4 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he came in at 150, missed the 146 cutoff. It says plus 115 on this. I don't remember that he was the underdog, but I guess he was because I think I had Chavez as well. I went 4 for 12 on my picks. So I didn't do a very good job.
I was 4 for 6.
You were, and you still lost money versus I actually. Well, you won Mountain Dew.
Why
you
are
lost
you rubbing
Mountain
salt
Dew.
into the wound?
You lost Mountain Dew. I actually won Mountain Dew. I'll talk about mine as well. But yeah, so that again, the first round of that fight, Jared Gordon versus Danny Chavez, looked like it was going to be great, and then I don't know why I can't imagine they gassed out. Maybe they did.
I mean, I got to be honest. I don't really remember this fight.
I remember
watching it, but I don't remember it.
It was immemorable. Looking at the numbers, you would think it was a little bit more exciting. I mean, maybe people did find it exciting. We just didn't. Looking at Gordon, 82 significant strikes, pretty decent amount for feathers. 41 to the dome, 19 to the body, 22 to the legs. 22 legs, jeez. 6 minutes of ground control, 2 for 7 on the takedowns, and Chavez did not have any of that. Pretty much half of Gordon's strikes, half of his dome shots, less than half of his body shots, and exactly half of his leg shots. Wasn't a bad fight, one takedown, but not really worth going into any more than that. So again, Gordon hit that at plus 115. Violent Bob Ross's fight got canceled. I just like seeing that guy in there just because that's such an absolutely ridiculous fighting name, but he does kind of look like a Violent Bob Ross.
Yeah, he does. He totally does.
And then we had a good fight, a short fight, but a good fight. This is where we alluded to this just a minute or so ago. Castaneda versus Eddie Weinland. This was fun, dude. This was
really
This
awesome.
is what, like, kind of we were talking about earlier, like a short fight that you're kind of like, maybe a longer one would have been better. But this was a good fight finished right before the round because it was a complete tale of two halves, so to speak, but in one round. Eddie Weinland came out with some nice shots. He looked good.
Proper English gentleman.
He looked like he just left filming of Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
He was literally doing even the hand motions and all that. It was funny, but this was a fun fight. So he had 17 significant strikes versus 42 for a cut. Honestly, the 17 seems light. I feel like he had more than that. But
so I don't know. I mean, the numbers are here, so it doesn't matter what I know or don't know. But for me, what was most obvious was Castaneda in the beginning of that first round. Well, there was only one round, but in the beginning of the round, watching him not do anything,
his hands were in his pockets.
I was losing my mind. I was losing my marbles, especially coming off his last fight. I thought, okay, Castaneda he's going to destroy Weinland. Weinland's a great fighter as well, but Castaneda, I feel, had a shot the last time, and it didn't really go his way, but this time he would just come out swinging. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
A minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes in, we're like, okay, well, there goes the first leg.
It was literally it was between the third 3.5 to 4.5-ish mark where he finally started doing something.
Well, so this is where that calculation and that measurement, I think, was coming into play. This is what Imamov should have been doing. But Castaneda, man, that explosion at the end, that's the result of taking that 1, 2, 3 minutes to see, okay, what do I need to do? This guy is doing this, he's doing that. What do I need to do to counter him? And then just letting everything out. The entire gas tank just emptied right now. I know I can finish this right here, right now. And he does.
Yeah, and so he had 23 shots to the dome. I felt like all 23 happened when he got that TKO. It wasn't that, but he had at least 7, and they were clean. It was beautiful. He just went bum, 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 bum. And Eddie, because we were, again, up to that point, it was a very clear Weinland round. By the way, I had picked Weinland initially on my random picks, the ones that I sent over to you. You pretty much talked me into taking Castaneda, so I took him on the second leg of my parlay. I hit that, and that was your first leg of your parlay. Yep. Because again, up to that point, I was like, well, I mean, at least he's going to get out of the first round. I mean, he didn't look like he was rocked at any point, but I was like, that was such a bad round for him. I was like, I'm just glad that the round's going to end. And then he just got one headshot. I was like, oh, that was something. And then he just followed up with like 7, 8 more shots after that. And then Weinland just got rocked. And then that was that.
Just to refresh our memories, Weinland had fought Sean O'Malley.
That was the last fight. And he took that walk-off shot to the dome and he just went to sleep.
Yeah, no, but he put up a performance in that fight too. Sean O'Malley just... That was a different animal, you know. Maybe it's the hair.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it was. Weinland. It's not like he was doing nothing and then he got knocked out.
He's a good fighter, arguably, man. But that performance was incredible too. I don't want to go too deep into that one, but I just wanted to point that out. And then John Castaneda, we watched that fight that he fought previously as well against Nathaniel Wood, which was also a good fight. Mm-hmm. But yeah, man, I don't know. I think he took that L and knew what he had to do. Just make a quick decision, figure out what I got to do to beat this guy, destroy him in that first round.
And he did. And he hit at minus 125. Right before that was a fight that I thought maybe could have been a fight of night potential. It was Landwehr and Erosa, but the fact that I can't even really remember the fight that well.
That's the one with the flying knee.
Oh, that it was. Yeah. How did I forget that?
Yeah,
that was that one? Yeah, okay. That was absolutely nuts. When we were talking about it right when it happened, was that too early of a call? I couldn't tell. I don't have.
There were a couple of those. There were a couple of those during yesterday's fights. Right.
It even says flying knee as the finish.
That's the some of the calls you can definitely say were contentious. Now, I watched the replays this morning because when I had a clear head, I'm like, let me take a look at this, and I can see why it was stopped early. That knee was vicious.
I wanted to see because the angle we saw it happen, I think it was like the fighters were facing this way, and initially,
it didn't look like it
I
made
couldn't
contact,
tell.
yeah.
I couldn't tell if it was an early call or not. And then when they showed the vertical shot, so that if this is Nate, and they showed it like this, because he just like plopped onto the ground. I was like, okay, I think it probably was, because then he got up immediately and he was contesting it, but then he kind of stumbled. And I couldn't tell if he stumbled because he caught a weird part of the mat or if he stumbled because he wasn't there.
Well, it was Mark Smith that was reffing that fight, right?
Was it? I can't remember.
I think it may have been Mark Smith, but I want to say that his position, I want to say that...
he was right there.
I don't even know how I can visually show this, but Mark Smith looked like he may not have had a clear view on what happened, so he saw...
I think he called it immediately, right? Once that knee hit, he called it immediately. Yeah.
Well, because oh my God, I'm blanking on the guy's name.
Who he fought? Who Nate fought?
Yeah.
Or Nate was the one that got knocked down. You talking about him?
Yeah, the guy that got knocked down.
Oh yeah, Nate.
Okay, so the way he got knocked down, it almost looked like the way Blaydes fell. It was just like
kind
of. It was kind of stiff. There was no fluidity to it. So I can see Mark Smith thinking like, that's it. He's dead on his feet. He's just dropping, and then not letting the risk of getting hit a couple more times come into play and just stopping it then and there. But the guy seemed okay. He popped right back up and was even arguing with Mark. He didn't look wobbly. He didn't.
Well, that's the thing. Right after his argument, I saw him take like a step to the left, and he kind of looked like he was wobbly. But I couldn't tell if that was because he was at the edge of the ring already. He was right at the edge of the octagon by the fence. So I don't know if he caught a weird part of the mat, and that's why his leg kind of thing, or if it was because his bell was wrong. But yeah, that was one of those two where I was like, it was a 56-second fight. Like, cause when looking at that one, because Nate's a dog. Like Nate the Train, like he really lives up to that name. So I was hoping this would be a bit of a longer fight just to see it. But yeah, you're not going to argue the ending. It was a sick ending.
No,
I would have liked to have seen more because that could have been a good fight. Well, it was a good fight, but an actual fight versus a flash pan in first rounder.
Better.
Yeah, it could have been better. So Rosa hit that at, what did he hit that at? Rosa was -110. This was according to Odds Shark, it was -120 for Nate and -110 for Rosa. Before that, we had the debut, if I'm not mistaken, it was the UFC debut of Casey O'Neill. She was 4-0 or 5-0 coming into this fight, and she was fighting Shanna Dobson, whose last fight was, I think, one of the biggest underdog hits in UFC history. She was like +900 or something.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that was the one. I can't remember her name. It was that Kazakhstani girl, Agapova, I think maybe was her name. I think she fought on the same card as Frankie Edgar and Pedro Munoz when we were in Vegas. I think it was back in August. Agapova was like -1600, something like that. And Shanna Dobson, at that point, her record was 3-4. Agapova, I think, was 9-0, something like that. So yeah, pretty heavy underdog. First round of that fight went to Agapova, and then second round, that Agapova had absolutely no energy, and Shanna Dobson just murdered her.
Yeah, that didn't happen this fight because O'Neill was dominating, I'd say,
the
entire
fight.
thing. There was no question about it. What did the judges even score this?
I think there was no scoring. It was a TKO.
She did get TKO.
I think she was on top, and she was on top. She was wailing her with those hammer.
Yeah. That's what. Oh, okay. You know what? Yeah, now I'm remembering this fight because I think at one point I said it was in the second round, and I think at one point I said you need to call this right now.
Yeah,
not because any damage is being done, but because I want to get a drink.
Yeah, because I guess the odds makers gave Shanna Dobson a little bit more respect because she went from +900 to +125. Again, a pretty ripe prospect in Casey O'Neill. Again, 4-0 or 5-0 entering this fight, so she's 5-0 or 6-0 now. She was at -155. That was the first leg of my parlay, so I hit my parlay. We also all, except you, had bet on Derrick Lewis. We took just as a straight after you guys got robbed on Kunitskaya. You guys, except you, everyone else in the room except you, took Derrick Lewis for 50 bottles of Mountain Dew, and we had a nice payout on that as well. It was a little
upsetting. I'm not gonna front.
Because it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, you were willing to take him on your money, on your parlay,
but you didn't want to. Well, because I didn't think of it like that. I had taken Blaydes.
You have to have the right
pick. Well, yeah, spread your risk, right? Don't let me play with your money, guys. You're gonna lose it. But in my mind, I thought Blaydes was the shoe-in. I didn't expect that random uppercut out of nowhere to just end it that way. But lesson learned, I guess. So I figured, okay, I lost out on that parlay. Why would I take a straight bet against the guy that I think is going to take that fight? In retrospect,
Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, I know we've just very briefly talked about the Dobson O'Neal fight, but that's honestly that's the summation of the fight. Dobson didn't do anything.
Yeah, there wasn't really much.
I mean, 4 for 6. I guess let's highlight some of her numbers because they're cool numbers. Yeah, 4 for 6 on the takedowns for O'Neal. 7 minutes of ground control, and yeah, definitely. 44 shots to the dome, 3 to the body, 2 to the legs. I mean, Dobson, sorry, your numbers weren't really memorable enough to say back.
Yeah.
You didn't, because she was on her back the whole time. Actually, when the fight started, we were saying this too because Dobson was throwing some punches like, Jesus.
Yeah, it looked like it was going to be interesting.
Yeah, and then once she got on the back, she got taken down, and that was that. So to go back to what you were saying about Lewis, I was watching his post-fight interview, not the one right after the fight with the headsets where he talked with Bisping, because that was like weirdly somber. Because I was telling you guys, I mean, you guys watch this. This guy's hilarious post-fight interviews, and it was like super serious. I was pretty disappointed. And then after the event ended, like the whole event, when he's like on the bench or on the desk the dais, whatever thing, they were asking him about if he had like planned that uppercut, and he had said that that's something they were practicing a lot in their camp. Like they were preparing for that because they were expecting Blaydes to shoot. So because you shoot, you come with your head down. So how do you get him? You have him with an uppercut, and he absolutely, I mean, you can't not take his word for it because the way he got that so perfectly, it seems very clear that they were working on that.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, like, wait, how do you stop a wrestler? Well, because once you're on the ground, if you don't have, because Derrick Lewis, again, I don't think he really has a ground game. So it's like if he got to the ground, and especially being a bigger frame too for both of those guys, I would guess Blaydes is better conditioned. Especially given that
he looked better conditioned.
Yeah. So if you get him on the ground and you have him frustrated, you have him tied up, he's gonna get tired out, and he's not even gonna be effective on his feet anymore. So you shoot down, and again, perfectly executed. You got him to the bottom. And it's funny because we just mentioned the conditioning. Lewis called out Alistair Overeem again, but he formally said it again post the fight. He's like, I want Overeem. He's like, give me a 3-rounder, man. He's like, I don't want to train for these 5-rounders. He's like, and they asked him why. He's like, I'm not built for this, dude. He's like, I get tired. I don't want to do this, man. Yeah, so I appreciate the honesty. He's like, I don't want this, man. Just give me a 3-rounder with Overeem. And he said, I want to clap those cheeks. So
you know what, though? For me, I think Overeem's another one of those guys that should probably retire at this point because that. Anyway, I don't want to talk.
I don't know if Blaydes has woken up yet, but he took. So in addition to the uppercut, he went down, and then he took those 2 shots after the uppercut. I mean, Herb tried to get there on time because he yelled "stop" after the first one. And again, for Lewis, they asked him about that after because I guess Blaydes' corner said to him like that was unnecessary to Blaydes or like that was a bitch move or something. I don't know because again, he got those 2 shots after he was clearly knocked out. But again, as a fighter in that moment, it's hard to switch that off. And he even says, like, I can't just switch that off. He's like, I literally need someone to grab me and pull me off, or I need the ref to come and shove me off. And he hadn't done that at that point. After the first punch, you could hear Herb yelling, stop. But yelling of the word stop when your hammer is coming down again is going to be hard to stop, especially when you're 263 pounds at the night of weigh-ins.
I mean, will that happen?
And they were quick. It's not like he went 1, 2. Yeah. They were boom, boom.
I don't even know if you could say what was it, 2 seconds. It felt almost like
he
within the same second.
His face was still in the mat.
There's no stopping that. You know, you're a monster. You're trying to kill that person when you're in the octagon. So, you know, it is what it is, man.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad for the heavyweight situation right now because you have March 27th. You have Miocic and Ngannou fighting. John Jones just moved up. And they asked this to both Blaydes and Lewis. They asked Blaydes before the fight, and they asked Lewis after the fight since he won. And they're like, are you guys okay with not fighting for the championship if you win this fight? Because it's probably going to be John Jones. And both of them were like, yeah, we get it. We get it. It's a business move. John Jones puts puts cheeks to seats. He's going to get buys. And it just sucks, though, because it's not merit-based. And a lot of the UFC stuff isn't always meritocracy. I mean, again, look at Blachowicz and Adesanya. Like, I'm looking forward to the fight, but Glover Teixeira absolutely got robbed and left out to dry. Mm-hmm. And he was justifiably more upset. I'm sure he understands the quote-unquote business end of it, but he was more vocal. He's like, I should be fighting, not Adesanya. He's like, Adesanya fights, and then what? Is he going to vacate the title? He vacates the title, then what do I do? Do I fight Blachowicz? Like, what's happening now? So it's a weird situation with some of these, as you get to the championship section. But
well, it becomes it's like you said, it's a business, it's a show. You know, people want it to be entertaining, and I get it as well. But at the same time, some of these guys, we can talk about this. Some of these guys, like Shabazian, for example, is he still ranked, isn't he?
He is 12.
Yeah, why? Why is he still ranked? He shouldn't be ranked. He's not fighting. There's other guys that are arguably doing better than him at that point, and it seems to be...
He's dropped significantly. He was, I think, at the time of the fight, he was number 8. He lost. I think when he lost, he dropped to 10 or something. And since then, you've had Kevin Holland jump over him, and you've had Marvin Vettori jump over him.
But this seems to be the trend. And there are guys that are doing excellent, that are murdering people, that aren't getting title shots, that aren't getting the chance to move up in their rankings. And just because they're super technical, they're quiet. They're not loudmouths. They're not showboaters.
The quiet part is the thing, and that's the tricky thing with rankings, really anywhere, but especially in fighting with the rankings. It's like, it's the best one isn't the one that always necessarily gets it. Like when they were talking about running it back with Poirier and McGregor for that to possibly be the title fight if Khabib were to vacate, for that to possibly, I'm like, Poirier for sure should be there.
Yes.
McGregor should not. McGregor is, in my opinion, at least 2 fights away from even getting a contender opportunity.
He needs
after
to get back into the gym, do his training camps. McGregor's arguably a great fighter. There's no argument.
He's a great fighter. He won the first round of that fight.
Correct. But to say that he deserves a title shot right off the bat, why?
No.
He's McGregor, that's why? No, of course not. And I drink proper number 12. So if anything, I should be biased towards that. But no, dude. And he knows it too. That's the thing. McGregor knows it. He's even said as much, that he's out of practice. He needs to get back into it. Yeah. Awesome, dude. Do it. You're a champion. You are champion material. Do it. But not because people want to see that fight, because you deserve it.
I'll watch that fight too, but it's like, come on, that's not the fight that should be.
Yeah.
Because Dana mentioned it too, and then he said that wouldn't be a title fight. So then at that point, I'm thinking, if I'm Poirier, why the hell am I taking that fight?
You shouldn't take that.
Why am I taking that fight? Yeah, I get it. I'm fighting McGregor. I'm going to get a nice paycheck. But at that point, because Poirier keeps saying, he's like, my goal, because he said it too. He's like, I did not want to be at that fight. He's like, walking into the fight, Poirier's saying this. He's like, I wasn't feeling it. He's like, I don't like doing this. He's like, I don't like fighting. But he's like, at this point, I'm chasing the belt. So if we take him at his word for that, if I'm him and Dana White, because he said it too, like, let's run that back. I mean, yeah, again, you guys had one fight, and the first fight was like 5 seconds long. You got knocked out. Second fight was also fairly short. It went to the second round, and you worked his body, you worked his dome, and you knocked him out. A third fight would be cool and all, but again, at this point, the lightweight division's already in a weird position because it's like Khabib, Dana's still trying to convince him. I think the title fight should be Poirier versus maybe even Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira, the man's like on an 8-9 fight win streak. I understand Gaethje's kind of like, who did he beat? Which, fine, sure, maybe you can kind of argue that. But, or if you want, Poirier.
Why wouldn't you have Poirier fight Gaethje?
Because Gaethje just lost to Khabib.
But that's Khabib.
Yeah, but he still lost, and you have a guy that just lost to the former or the current champion, and you have a guy that's riding like an 8-9 fight win streak, and he thoroughly dominated Tony Ferguson too. And Tony Ferguson, yeah, he was at that point he had lost. Gaethje was his first loss, so this was his second loss in a row, I believe. Gaethje beat him up pretty solid, but then the thing is, Charles Oliveira completely manhandled Tony Ferguson. He almost snapped his arm off. I mean, I don't know what else that guy could have done to make a convincing. If Oliveira's next fight should either be for the title or it's a number 1 contender fight. It's like, if I win this fight, then I am fighting for the title. And maybe you can make the case, let that be Gaethje versus Oliveira. The winner of that fight's Poirier. If you want to do like a weird, like a circuit kind of a thing, since, again, we don't know what's happening with Khabib. If Khabib stays, it should be Poirier versus Khabib, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If Khabib doesn't stay, something that was kind of thrown out there was like doing like because Bellator was like initially founded on these like tournaments kind of stuff. So the thing that I heard was like doing a lightweight tournament, which would include Poirier. I don't remember if Oliveira's name was mentioned. It should have been there. I think Gaethje was mentioned. Michael Chandler was mentioned. I believe they threw in McGregor, or they didn't. I think it was those 4 names. And honestly, I'm fine with those 4 names because McGregor at this point is 1-2 in his last 3. No, I'm sorry, he's 1. He lost to Poirier. He beat Cerrone, and he lost to Khabib before that. So he's 1-2 in his last 3. And that spans over 2018, he fought in 2018, towards the end of 2018. He fought once in 2019. He had this fight. I don't think he should be even if there's like a tournament, I don't think he should be in that kind of a thing either. So if they want to do a tournament thing, that could be cool. But I think ultimately Poirier should be getting a title fight. Who the second guy is, I think is a little bit more arguable. But
I mean, I guess it's just.
And Poirier fights dogs, man. Poirier fights tough opponents. He went to war with Dan Hooker the last fight, and then he KOs whatever that was considered McGregor that last fight. What else do you want from this guy, man? He should be getting a title fight.
So it's really going to come down to what Khabib does, I guess. I mean, at this point, I thought that my assumption was that if McGregor had won the Poirier fight, Khabib would probably come out just to put him,
back into the grave.
Put him back. Yeah, put him back in his place. And I don't see that happening at this point because what reason does Khabib have to come back? So somebody's going to have to make a tough decision and see if that belt needs to be.
It's pretty much going to be how much money Dana throws at him because Khabib has kind of said, like, he's like, I have money. Yeah. He's like, I've already beat McGregor. I've already beat Poirier. I've already beat Gaethje. So those top guys, like, who am I supposed to fight? I honestly would love to see him fight Charles Oliveira, given that they both are absolute machines on the ground. I don't know if they've asked him about Oliveira, or maybe he said, I'm not interested, or maybe he kind of had like a, who's that guy kind of response. I don't remember. But that to me just stylistically seems like an interesting fight because like you both are really good on the ground. Are you guys going to end up staying on the feet then? How's that going to go out? Because Oliveira, I think, is taller too. I'm pretty sure he's taller. So I'd be interested to see that. That's not going to happen.
Well, since we're on the subject of our, of what we'd like to see and what we wouldn't like to see and what could and could not be, I want to see Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington.
Oh, hell yeah. We both want to
see. Coming off that fight with Burns, Usman has basically been ducking Colby, man, and it's very interesting because
he immediately called out Masvidal.
Yeah, I don't think you should fight Masvidal. I think you should have a rematch with Colby, dude, because that fight was ridiculous, and I think Colby could have taken it potentially. There's nobody else that's given Usman that hard of a fight.
Had that fight gone decision, I think maybe it would have honestly been a split decision. I have no idea. Colby keeps saying had that fight gone to decision, I would have won. I'm a big Colby fan. I think you're a big Colby fan too. I don't know if that would have been the case because, again, to go back to the Yana and the Vieira fight, you don't know what the hell the judges are going to do. Yeah. But that was, absolutely phenomenal fight. And before the Burns fight, Usman admitted, he's like, Colby was my greatest challenge. He's brought the most out of me than any opponent has. And then he follows that up with Jorge Masvidal, where are you at?
Yeah, no, it doesn't make any sense. Man. It makes no sense at all.
Well, it does make sense to me because he's ducking him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, exactly. Dude, Dana, I would love to get in his head for a little bit just to know like what goes on there. Like, I'm sure money is the number one contributing factor to this, but at the same time, rematching Usman and Colby it's a gold mine. That's
the thing is, both fights.
Pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
I think both fights will probably sell because Masvidal also does this well, which is what Colby does. Masvidal stirs the pot and pisses people off, so that's why Usman called him out. Partly because he's ducking Colby, and partly because Usman. It seems like Usman you can get under his skin kind of easily, or at least Colby has done it successfully, and Masvidal did it successfully. Okay, so looking at this right now, so I'm on the UFC ranking site. So Usman's the champion. Colby is back to the number one status since Burns lost. Burns is a number two guy. So let's immediately eliminate a Burns-Usman rematch. That makes no sense right now. Makes no sense right now. And then after that, you have Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards last fought, I think, in 1947. This guy hasn't fought in a while. So Leon's already booked. He's fighting on March 13th. Yep. He's fighting Bilal Muhammad. Masvidal is ranked 4. I don't know why. I had talked with James Lynch on my other pod like a few months ago, and when he looked at the rankings, like, why the hell is he ranked number 4? I don't know either. So again, Masvidal should not be fighting him at this point, but if he is, there's that. Then you go down there, you have Stephen Thompson. Stephen Thompson just beat, oh my gosh, who did he just beat? It wasn't Woodley, was it? No. He beat, oh my goodness, who did he beat?
I mean, just talking about Masvidal, his last fight was November 2nd,
Oh, Jeff Neal,
2019.
sorry, that's what he beat.
You may as well be retired at that point, in my opinion.
What did you say, Masvidal's last what?
November 2nd, 2019.
That was his last
win? That was his last, well, no, prior to fighting Usman, that was his last fight. Yeah, the Usman fight was July of 2020.
Here's the thing you have to factor with Masvidal too. So you've seen that flying knee, that 5-second fight by Masvidal, right? Yeah. Okay. Ever since that, his life has changed entirely. Because again, on like the branding side, whatever the right terminology is, he's nailed it after that.
Yeah.
I didn't know who he was before that. Granted, again, I wasn't really much of a watcher. But once that happened, I still wasn't much of a MMA watcher. At that point, I knew who Jorge Masvidal was, and he's ran with it since successfully. So now he's asking for a lot more cheddar because he's bringing out. He's not a bad. He's a entertaining fighter to watch. Granted, that Usman fight was boring as hell with him and Usman, but so that's why he's more selective with his fights because he has that leverage now because he's made his money at this point. He lives in Florida. He's chilling. He's in Miami chilling. He doesn't need to fight.
So on the note of fighters that I'm really excited to see also in the welterweight division is
I already know who you're saying.
Luque, man.
Which we were both pretty bummed he got matched up with Woodley.
Yeah, I mean that it's very disappointing because watching Luque, I didn't even it was similar to watching the grapplers fight, the ones that we were talking about earlier today, the Minner fight, the Darrick Minner fight. Watching Luque for me was exciting because he's so technical. Everything looks calculated.
Aptly named the silent assassin.
There's no wasted movement with Luque. It's I'm coming after you. You're going to die, and I'm gonna make sure that it's done. I don't know who. Like I don't know. I don't know who else I would want to see fight. Like it would be awesome to see him move up the rankings because I think he can give Usman a run for his money. I think he gets Colby
maybe at some point. I don't think yet. Maybe
not yet.
Some
no,
point.
Of course not. But fight some more, man. You had one fight last year, was it? I think he had one, and that was it.
It was brutal too.
It was.
He fought on the Shabazian card. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
it was that one.
That's the one that it was on.
Because look, I'm looking at this right now. Luque is 29, and Woodley is 38. After the Woodley and Covington fight, Dana White was the one saying Woodley should consider retiring. So you go from he should consider retiring to let's book him let's book him against someone that's 9 years younger and arguably possibly a rising contender in this division.
I'm getting under Dana's skin here. He's forcing him to retire. Is what's happening.
Do it. He's lost 14 rounds in a row.
I think that's what the plan is. Luque is going to
retire.
He's going to retire him, man. That's what's going to
happen. Dude, his last fight, he left in a stretcher. What else do you want from the guy? Does he have to leave in a coffin next? Do you have to have a pallbearer there to escort him out? Like, come on, man. I would have much rather seen Luque fight maybe Neil Magny. Actually, Neil Magny just lost against the other guy I would have suggested. Maybe Luque versus Michael Chiesa. Or maybe even Luque and Neil. Neil just lost to Thompson, but Neil and Luque would have been cannon bombs because those guys are both absolutely deadly on their feet. That would have been cool. It'll be like if Luque wins, he's going to move up in the rankings because he's fighting number 7. But it's like it's a waste of a fight in my opinion. It's like you're spoiling that talent on someone that is already on his way out. I don't like that.
Well, you never know. I mean, what would be interesting is. Maybe Luque moves. So you're saying he wins, he's going to move up to the 7th place, right?
I don't know if he'll jump up there necessarily. He might jump up there, yeah.
He could potentially fight Masvidal or Leon Edwards.
Leon also said, to Leon's credit, because part of this hasn't been entirely. I mean, I forgot who someone was accusing him of ducking. I don't know if that was necessarily the case. Part of it was Leon had COVID and he wanted to make sure he didn't have lingering effects of COVID. And then I think he was also having issues traveling because he's in the UK and whatever. So Leon has said I think he wants to fight a good amount this year. Because again, he hasn't fought since 2019. I don't know if Leon would... Because Leon had taken the fight against Khamzat, right? Khamzat at the time was number 15 when he agreed to take him. I mean, as a number 3 guy, you're willing to risk that to fight number 15 is props to you. Also, Khamzat had so much hype behind him after those first 3 fights. It cooled down a lot because he's kind of been out of the circulation of the conversation because he's been sick. So then that's why they were trying to make Colby happen. Dana's like, look, he was doing us a solid by agreeing to fight a number 15 guy. We can kind of give it back to him by having him fight the number 1 guy. And I think, honestly, that would have been a fair fight to have made anyway. And the winner of that would then fight Usman. I think that would have been good. I don't know why Colby ducked that fight. I mean, he was saying, he's like, I'm not gonna give to charity and let you should have fought him. Because now, as Colby, I don't know who I was listening to that was talking about this. If you're Colby now, who's your next fight? Is it Burns?
I mean, it would have to be because if Usman continues to duck him, then you don't have a choice. But I don't know, man, because it's... And I don't know if it's 100% on Dana. I think it is, right? He gets the full control over who fights and who doesn't fight.
No, he's not. He doesn't? I think he has said he does not do the matchmaking.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm sure if he says don't do that, they won't, I would think. But I don't think he's also... and I'm sure if there's one that he'd like to see.
Well, I mean, if I'm a matchmaker and Dana White walks up to me and says don't do this, I'd probably listen.
Yeah.
Dude, the guy's terrifying. He's huge.
He's roided.
Yeah.
The other one, I mean, Colby had said, he's like, I want either Usman or I want Masvidal. He wants Masvidal because they used to be buddies. They were roommates. They were both fighting out of, I think they were out of AKA in Miami. And then they had a falling out. I think Masvidal punched Colby at a hotel or something, if I'm not mistaken. And since then, they've completely flipped. And it's funny because they both are doing the whole Trump thing too. So he's all like, after he beat Woodley, he said, I want either Usman or I want Masvidal. And Colby is in a position now too, it's similar to Masvidal, where it's like, he doesn't have to fight. He's made his nut. He doesn't need to go and fight to make a living. He's already done it.
I don't know. I feel like him and Usman may have like a genuine dislike for each other, and I'd like to see.
No, I think they do, and I also think he genuinely dislikes Masvidal as well. Or maybe they might be playing that up more, but I do think
dislike more is the question here.
I think the fight to make should be Usman and Covington.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
If that was not that would have been my first option for Colby. My second option for Colby, I get it. Look, if he fought Masvidal, I would fight that because I would want to see him just absolutely wail on him. But I think the next logical fight at the time was that March 13th fight. And I'm sure physically Colby's a machine. I'm sure he's been training, so I'm sure he would have been ready for it. I think it's also like, in case he actually lost to Leon Edwards, I think it's like, I don't want to lose my standing, but there was no chance in hell he was going to lose to Leon Edwards. There wasn't any way. So I don't know. Now at this point, I'm like, because again, as a Colby fan, I'm looking, I'm like, all right, what do you do? Where do you go from here? Because you're in this situation where it's like, you're possibly not going to fight Usman, because now they're talking about Masvidal Usman. You're not fighting Leon Edwards, so yeah, Gilbert Burns stuff, and that'll be a cool fight too. But
or maybe you can do, maybe you could do one of those things where you just fuck it, I'll fight Luka.
I don't think you will.
I mean, a guy can dream, right? Like, I'd love to see something like that.
The thing is,
dropping down in ranks.
The thing is, I think at that point, like, Luka is not there yet to fight Colby. Colby will make quick work of him, I think.
I don't know. I'm rising star, man. I'm riding that train, dude. So keep giving me the under on Luka. I'll keep taking that.
Taking the dog on him.
Yep.
So last fight to also discuss about on this last event was Zahabi versus Rodriguez. Very short fight, like 3 minutes. Rodriguez also missed weight by 3.5 pounds or 4 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully I don't have the wrong guy. Yeah, he did miss weight, if I'm not mistaken. And Zahabi absolutely clocked him.
Yep.
Again, so this was one of those fights we were talking about where up to the knockout, it was pretty dull. And then he knocked him out, and immediately we kind of got up off our seats, like, what the hell was that? But that was about it. Aside from that punch, this was a dull fight, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I mean, again, like you said, that's one of those things where you don't know. It could have gone 2 rounds, it could have gone 3 rounds and gotten a lot more interesting.
Conversely, like the Gordon fight was great in the first round and boring the second and third.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. But the fact that this was, a knockout or TKO, it was an actual knockout. It wasn't a TKO. And was it 3 minutes into the first round? He caught him right on the neck.
Yeah, dude, he got him bad.
That was it, man. Wailed on him a couple times, and then the stoppage came.
And that was another dog. He was plus 150, and that hit.
It's one of those things where, was there anything really notable about this? No. But it was cool to see.
It was a great knockout. Very highlight worthy. But before that, yeah, nothing. And then we touched a little bit already on the fight before Spivak Vandera. It's not even worth mentioning.
Yeah, no. I mean, those are always so touch and go, man, because... Like, what are you watching here?
Dana, implement BMI, implement something, dude. Body fat, I don't know. Fix the heavyweights.
Yeah.
Because it's so lopsided, in my opinion.
No, the top of the line is just monsters.
Heavyweight, I'm on this side right now. Yeah, heavyweight, you have Stipe, Ngannou, Blaydes, Rosenstruck. Lewis is already kind of a chunky monkey, but he looked a little bit leaner. Volkov is an animal. Overeem looks conditioned. Gane is conditioned. I'm sorry, I don't have familiarity with who Abdurakhimov is. Sakai is he's kind of got a belly. Olenek, unit. Walt Harris, chunky monkey. Santos, unit. Ivanov, I've seen this guy fight. I think he was a chunky monkey. Pavlovich, I don't know who that is. And Tibura is also kind of a chunky monkey. That's your top 15 in the heavyweight division. About half our units, about half our chunky monkeys. And anyone that isn't ranked is also pancake titty.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's why, like, a lot of the times when I see heavyweight, if it's not those top half, I don't care. I still watch it, but I'm just more like, let's wrap this up. Because again, if it goes past the 3 minute mark in the first, all you hear is it's annoying as shit.
I mean, there's a couple of guys that are similar looking in the light heavyweight division, and if we want to talk about that for a second, I'm getting really excited about this Adesanya v. Blachowicz fight.
Yes,
I like Jan.
We'll be live in Vegas for that one.
Oh yeah, we will be, man. And look, I don't like Adesanya personally.
No,
I don't like his attitude.
He's a hell of a fighter.
He's a hell of a fighter. He's an amazing fighter. I don't know what to think. I'm definitely putting money on Jan. I'm putting Mountain Dew on Jan. There's no question about it.
Well, and we're going to go into that card in more detail next Sunday for sure, because it is stacked. I can't believe that's one. You can take the Santos Rakic fight and you could do a fight night as that, with that being the main event. And that is like the fourth, that is the second fight, I think, on the main card, because you have three title fights. I think that's the second one on the main card. So that wraps up this past week's event. This coming week, you have it headlined by Rosenstruck and Gane, which should probably be an absolute banger. Both guys are animals and terrifying. Gane last beat someone pretty recently. Who did he fight? Let me see if I can pull it up here. He last fought Dos Santos, December 12th. Dos Santos was kind of pissed off about that stoppage because he thought he got hit in the side of the dome. I don't think that was really the case. Also, his bell was wrong. I don't think he knew where he was. Gane was super humble about it. He's like, I don't know. Maybe I did that. Like, he was playing it pretty nicely. But I think that'll be a cool fight.
I think another one to watch will be the Alexander Hernandez and Thiago Moises fight. That'll be interesting because both those fighters we saw fight last year and they performed. So
we'll see. We'll have a little bit more thorough. I mean, we'll discuss it more thoroughly next Sunday or whenever it is, and we will go over that card in its entirety. Until then, that recaps Blaydes versus Lewis. Andrew, any parting thoughts besides thank you to the judges of the Yana fight?
Not really. I mean, it's just frustrating when you're coming from a different perspective, when you have fought, and obviously not anymore, but when you have fought and you know that it shouldn't all come down to one thing or another, but for whatever reason, people have, their biases, and that gets frustrating for me. Even if there were no Mountain Dews on the line, I think I would still be frustrated by the outcome of the fights.
For sure. Because you're at that point, you're watching it for the sport. I'm still watching it for the sport itself. So you want it, you want the integrity to be there. Again, was there any malicious thing behind that scoring?
I don't think
no, but it's also, was it ignorance, or were you like were you texting, or what were you doing that you thought? All three of you thought that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Man, we can beat this into oblivion.
Well, so that's all I really have. I don't, there's nothing past it than that. So.
Well, then, until next Sunday when we see Rosenstruck versus Gane, hopefully at that point we're talking about another crazy knockout like we did for this Lewis and Blaydes fight. So yeah, till then, thanks.
Bye-bye.